Welcome, everybody. We'll call to order the August 20 meeting of the Freeport Project Review Board. We have a quorum present, 4 of us in the room, and Lynn Hamlin on Zoom. Lynn, can you hear us?
I can.
Linda Berger and Drew Sachs are excused. Give us information exchange, Kyle.
Sure. So, update on the comp plan. The new comprehensive plan update went to the planning board for public hearing on August 6th. I guess maybe since the last time we met, there was also the update that the state did find our comp plan update consistent with the Growth Management Act. So that was kind of the first big step. So then we had the public hearing at the planning board level. The planning board recommended the comp plan update move ahead and go to council. So September 2nd, the council will have setting the public hearing on the agenda, and then the public hearing to adopt the comp plan update will be held on September 16th. So that's all good stuff. It'll have a lot of new and fun things to work on for the planning board that I'm sure will be relevant to the PRB later down the line. So we'll keep you posted there. Update on design review ordinance update. So the planning board at its last 2 meetings worked through a text-only draft of the design review update. This was to kind of get early feedback on what we've gotten back from North Star to make sure that the ordinance was headed in the right direction. So the planning board worked through the draft. We got some feedback, so we're going to give that back to the consultant. And then they should integrate the feedback with the kind of updated graphics and photos that are going to go into the ordinance, and then we'll have a complete draft. So once that complete draft is ready, we'll probably loop the PRB back into the conversation just to get this board's feedback as well. So that'll probably be maybe in October when we have that draft back and ready to share with the board. So we'll let you know there. Some other topics reviewed by the planning board, aside from the comp plan and design review, which has been kind of the primary work they've been doing lately. The planning board did recommend a building height increase to the VC1 zone on Depot Street to the council that the council then adopted recently. So in general, the building height, max building height allowable in the VC1 district is 45 feet. There was a call out in the downtown vision plan to allow potentially a higher height on Depot Street specifically because of the way it slopes down there, and for the potential for potentially a 5-story building to not have the same perceived impact on Depot as it would if it was on Main, for instance. So the board did recommend increasing the height on Depot to 55 feet. Council adopted it, so that's in effect now. We'll keep that in mind for projects as they come in on this board. And then staff approvals, there have been a couple of small changes for applications that have come in at the staff level. You might have seen the sign. There's a replacement sign that was staff approved for Realm of Legends on Main Street, where the chamber is, and then Iris Gallery, I believe it's called, at 88 Main. Was formerly used as like an ATM space. It's pretty small, I think like 200 square foot kind of space there near the corner of Bow and Main. It's going to be used as like a retail photography business. So they had a change of use application that was just really converting office space to that retail space. So approved that at the staff level. Yeah, that's it though.
Anyone have any questions for Kyle? Next item is review of the June 18 minutes, prepared by Sharon. Anyone have any changes or deletions, additions? Oh, yeah.
Excellent job as always, Sharon.
Great, I had one minor change that has been noted. Great, the first item is
Do we need to-
MBC.
Do we need to approve those?
I'm sorry, yeah. All in favor? Thank you, Sharon.
I think we should probably do roll call vote because Lynn is online.
Okay. Motion has been made to accept the June 18 minutes. We'll do roll call vote because we have a Zoomer. Linda Berger's absent. Jason Donahue?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes,
Dan?
Yes.
Reiki, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the motion passes. First item of real business is NBC Real Estate Holdings at 2 Stagecoach Road for the addition of 58 parking spaces at Maine Beer Company. Can you give us some background, Kyle?
Yeah, so just before the applicant can provide more detail on the overview of the project, this is the conceptual application stage. So it's a site plan review application. So because of the square footage increase of the parking area, it triggers the board having a conceptual review before the final application submission. So that's what we're here for tonight. So there's no formal decision made by the board, but we will have an overview of the project. So Maine Beer on Route 1, they purchased the property abutting the existing Maine Beer facility at 2 Stagecoach Road this past fall, early winter. There was a zone change approved there through the planning board and council to take roughly the front half on the Route 1 side of the site and convert it from RR1 to the C1. And that was primarily to enable this project, which was to expand the parking area from the existing parking facility over onto this abutting lot. So with these 58 additional spaces. From a staff perspective, the biggest issue that we really identified, and I wouldn't really say it's an issue because I think it's largely been resolved already in conversations. So if you look at the plans as they were submitted, you'll notice that it's shown on 2 different lots. So there's the existing Maine Beer lot and the 2 Stagecoach lot. This creates a little bit of an inconvenience with the way our ordinance works. In the C1, there's provisions to provide landscaping buffers in the front and the side setbacks. So because that shared lot line between Maine Beer and the parking area would still exist, it would make it so that the parking area would have to be bumped off of that side lot line. So in talking with the applicant, it seems that they're okay with the idea of merging the 2 lots, which would just make this a lot cleaner. One, for that reason, but also the new parking will generate a new need for additional ADA spaces. And as our code officer pointed out, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have to put those ADA spaces located further away from the building rather than closer to the building. Our peer review engineer provided some initial comments on the parking area and stormwater. Those came in after I posted the electronic packet, so there's a copy of that on in front of you here tonight. Lynn, I can forward that to you after, since you were able to see that. But there's nothing major there. So there's a stormwater feature shown east of the parking area on the plan. So this should fall under the town's delegated review. There's an existing stormwater permit that was approved the last time Maine Beer came for an expansion in 2016, I believe. So the town used its delegated review authority there to make sure that, stormwater meets Chapter 500, and our peer review engineer would do similar here once we got the full stormwater report in the final application submission. Other than that, largely the landscaping in the front along Route 1 and behind the parking area heading out towards Stagecoach is proposed to remain, which provides pretty substantial buffers on both sides. I think, you can see where on the slide Chris has up there that there's some additional landscaping proposed on that southern part of the parking area, which will provide some screening to the property to the south. And then, from everything we can see, the proposed lighting in the parking area meets the ordinance as required as well. If the board, does get to the point in the final application submission where they're ready to approve the project, we would just put in a condition of approval that a new deed be created before a building permit was issued to make sure those two lots were merged. That's pretty much it for the staff side. Turn it over to Chris to give more info on the applicant side, or Steve.
Great. I'll just make a quick note if I can. This is a conceptual hearing, so we're not being asked to take any action tonight. It's a first introduction. And as a matter of disclosure, I've used Sebago Tech and Chris Taylor on a project that is not pending before the Project Review Board, and under our ordinance, it's a conflict of interest if it's a relative or I have a financial interest in this project. That's not the case. Thanks.
And good evening, I'm Steve Mills. I'm a resident here in Freeport. I'm the chief executive of Maine Beer Company, and here to answer any questions you might have. And Kyle, we did take your guidance, and we've already, Pierce Atwood is working on the paperwork to submit to merge the lots, so
Okay, great.
we're on it.
Steve, this appeared before you appeared before the council and the planning board to get the zone change, right? Was there
Yes.
any, we're always concerned about abutters. Did you have any public comment or concern about this?
Well, we need the parking if that's where you're going, and and there is a bigger plan, and we've been open about that. We our retail business, we're a light manufacturer, and we make beer. The majority of our beer is actually sold to wholesalers that sell it throughout New England and beyond in bars and restaurants and grocery stores, liquor stores, depending on the state and the requirements. So that's where the bulk of that goes. We need to add capacity in order to fill those needs to quench their thirst, pun intended. And so, but the retail outlet up front, it's a busy place, especially seasonally. And in order for us to satisfy the parking this time of year, we need more parking spots. So we'd like to relocate some of those parking spots down below at some point. But, we understand we've got to keep the horse in front of the cart, if you will. So we need to build this bigger parking spot now. So, we've worked with experts, Sebago Technics, and Zachar Construction is going to be the general contractor, right? And so we're lining this thing up to build something that, being mindful of our neighbors. We've spoken with our neighbors. Everything seems to be, we're listening a lot and doing our very best to put together a good plan that's going to take care of us and being mindful of our surroundings.
Thanks.
And I'm Chris Taylor with Sebago Technics. I think Kyle did a great introduction of the proposed plan here. Just a couple of things to add is that we're proposing 58 parking spaces. With the parking lot will be 58 spaces. We've got a walkway along the edge of the parking lot leading with a kind of crosswalk across the driveway leading into the existing parking lot, which provides pretty convenient access into the facility and the retail side of the business. As part of that, the walkway going through will lose one parking space in the existing parking lot, coming out with 57 net new ones. There's currently 6 ADA spaces already on the existing facility. That is with the addition of this parking expansion, those 6 spaces are still meeting regulations for ADA parking spaces, so no additional new ADA parking spaces are required by this. As Steve had mentioned, we're working to merge the 2 lots, get rid of that interior lot line, to kind of get rid of those interior setbacks, just out of convenience. We do have a stormwater basin that's located in this location here, highlighted on the screen. It's going to be a under drain soil filter, and we'll provide the detailed calculations for that, showing that it kind of captures, treats, detains the runoff from the new impervious area, meeting DEP standards in Chapter 500. There's no new traffic associated with this from a permitting standpoint, as traffic's generated by building and uses and not necessarily number of parking spaces when we're looking at the ITE code. So this is kind of where, it's assumed that all the traffic is kind of already coming here. We're just providing more adequate parking. And as Steve had mentioned, we're kind of providing some more parking spaces for future plans, make it more convenient for some future flexibility. Utilities, no new water or sewer connections, no additional use associated with that. We're going to maintain the existing driveways on Route 1 and Pine Street, so this won't change any of the traffic patterns as well. We do have light poles. Those will be either on timers or photo cells, so that they're timed to be on in the evening hours when the facility is still open, and then overnight they'll be turned off. And then I guess finally there is an existing house on the 2 Stagecoach Road, 2 Stagecoach lot that will have to be demolished as part of this. It's kind of falling. Location of it's right here. It kind of conflicts with the parking lot, so that's just something that'll have to be removed as part of this process. I think that's basically all I had for a rundown, and available for any questions you guys have.
Just for the board, one other thing. So there's a slight difference in how this would be kind of viewed procedurally from, if it's 2 lots or 1 lot. It doesn't change anything intent-wise with the project, or, too many standards or process in terms of, we're doing conceptual and then the final meeting, but just for, the board's kind of own awareness, if this was kept as 2 lots, then technically the parking lot on the 2 Stagecoach lot would be viewed as a principal use as a parking facility, whereas, and it's its own separate site plan application, like a new site plan just for the parking lot, essentially, on that lot. Whereas when the lots are merged, there's an existing site plan already for the main beer developed portion of that site. So if they're 1 lot, then it becomes more of a site plan amendment to that existing application. So it kind of brings that whole development together rather than looking at it as 2 separate pieces. Now, there's no changes, as Chris alluded to the use or any of that stuff. So, it's kind of what I meant by most of the standards there are unimpacted. It's not like, we're looking at traffic increases or building footprint increases or revisiting the existing main beer building, but there would just be that small difference of looking at it as a principal use compared to looking at it through the lens of a site plan amendment application.
Any questions for Steve or Chris?
I had a grading drainage question. Is there a small stream that is along what would be the northwestern side along Route 1, that by looking at the plan here, it looks like it might be on what's currently Main Beer property and not this parcel, but I'm wondering how that drains. I've walked past there in the spring and seen water flowing through there. That's what raises the question. I just didn't see anything here that kind of addressed.
On the northwest side, are you talking in this area here? Or down
closer to the current Main Beer driveway along that stretch of Route 1. Yeah, somewhere in that vicinity.
No, we went out and did a wetland delineation. There's no stream or wetland over here. There is a stream in this section of the site, and we've designed the stormwater basin to be 75 feet from the edge of the stream so that we're kind of providing that buffer there. There's a stormwater basin right here that does discharge onto this 2 stagecoach lot, which kind of does create a wetland right in this area. You can see the darker green. That's where there's a wetland there. So maybe that's what you're thinking of. I don't know.
I mean, it could have been a spring thing, but, so that basin is on an adjacent property?
Yeah, the basin is on the adjacent property for the parking lot down here.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask about, Will Haskell had, I think, raised a good point with the parking configuration, item number 2, about being able to turn around upon realizing that the lot is full and that being a difficult vehicular maneuver.
Yeah, it is a good comment. What our intent is to take this last parking space, hatch it, stripe it on the pavement, put a sign up, says no parking for turnaround use, so that a car can, if it is full, turn in here, back out, and go back out of the parking lot.
Yeah, I did talk with Will about that. There's no strict standard for providing a turnaround in a parking area, but it's something that would fall under the board's, vehicular access finding, just, general access through the parking area. So, yeah, if there's a solution like that, I think it's relevant to discuss. Just on that topic, though, of access, we did send to fire for comment on emergency access, and they had no comment. But that's largely because, the building's not located on that side, so fire doesn't seem, probably won't be pulling into that part of the parking lot too often.
Any other comments? This is not a public hearing, but we welcome public comment. Does anyone from the public care to speak? I guess one question is whether we feel like we need a site walk for this.
Site visit?
Yeah.
I think because of the overhead, the satellite shots, and the fact that nothing changes off Route 1 and Pine or Stagecoach, probably not required.
That's how I feel also. Anyone feel like we should have a site walk? It's well buffered. It's
Yeah.
No.
great. Nothing else?
Yeah, I have nothing else.
Anything else you care to share? We'll see you folks at the next meeting. Is that the plan?
Yes.
Yeah, that is our
September-
intent to.
that's September 17th.
Yeah, we intend to resubmit next week and try to be on for the next meeting. So,
Okay.
all right.
Great. Thank you very much. The next item is M&R Holdings. This is a proposal, this is, again, concept presentation, no action required by us. Sorry, Tom. And this is a project that will be site plan review and design review. It's on a site we've already approved for 67 units, which didn't get built, and this is a proposal for 51 units. Kyle, you want to give us some background?
Yeah, so I think the applicant will have a presentation walking through a lot of the site plan details and things like that, so I'll provide some context for a bit of the process. So previously, when the board approved the project, similar project in this location in '22, there actually would have been kind of 3 phases of the review back then. So there was site plan, design review, and subdivision review. This past fall, the planning board and then, eventually the council adopted a change to the ordinance, taking advantage of exemption under state law, where if multifamily is in a single building, and you're already reviewing it through site plan, you don't also have to review it through subdivision as well. So these types of projects now only fall under site plan and then, if applicable, design review. So instead of necessitating a 3-meeting process, the board is only obligated to hold our typical 2 meetings that we do for site plan review. The conceptual stage, which is where we are tonight, and then the follow-up, full application submission. Obviously, if there are, questions that arise, that the timeline can be expanded, but just for the basis of process, that's kind of what's required, and we're no longer looking at that kind of duplicate review of adding on subdivision on top of site plan. On that note, because I mentioned this in the staff report, because the subdivision plan was recorded after the last approval, there should be some record in some way updated at the registry that sort of lets everyone know that previous subdivision plan no longer applies. So I'm just going to touch base with the town attorney. Our ordinance makes it seem like the board should file something at the registry, but I'm not sure if that's something we want to add on as a condition of approval or what the process is for that, because I don't think it's something we typically do. So I'll double check on that and then have that info for next time. As far as the project itself, it's an allowed use downtown. Obviously, a very similar project was approved before. Currently, it's an existing parking area, so we're talking about an infill development project here. I think it's something that, in general, has been encouraged through the downtown vision plan and a lot of the town goals. So, it's good to see this type of thing come forward. I noted in the staff report, most of the space standards seem to be met from the preliminary site plan. Your minimum lot area, frontage, your density requirements, those sorts of things, height, impervious allowance. The one question that staff had, I've talked about this with codes a bit, and we've relayed it to the applicant, is around the ordinance setback requirement when it comes to things like stairs. So the way our building definition is worded, buildings include things attached to them, like overhangs and stairs and things like that. However, if you walk around downtown, you'll see a lot of stairways kind of leading right up to the sidewalk. So I think there's some distinction made. And actually, if you go back to the 22 project that was approved, that project was approved with stairs leading up to the sidewalk on Depot Street within that 5-foot setback area. So I think there's a distinction. The best I can tell, the intent is that if the stairways are, commonly, I think what we see downtown are concrete or granite stairs that are sort of extensions of the walkway leading up to the building versus stairways that are sort of attached and part of the building itself. So I think there's some way to work around that and kind of have that meet the ordinance requirement to allow stairs within that setback area, but we just wanted to flag it there as something to call out that, could be something that the ordinance, kind of provide some guidance on. The existing parking area as proposed seems to meet the ordinance requirements as far as travel aisle width and parking. Space dimensions, the number of spaces for what they're proposing unit-wise, we're talking 51 units with 52 parking spaces. That meets the ordinance requirement for not shared parking for multifamily downtown. And then I think we also commented in the staff report that front setback area. So there's 2 front setback areas here, right? Since it's a corner lot, the VC1 district does require that space be used for some type of amenity, whether it's landscaping or seating or expanded sidewalks, something like that. So I think in the renderings, you'll probably see some of those details. But yeah, that's pretty much it for staff. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, but otherwise I'll turn it over to Dan to get into some of the details.
Great. Thanks, Kyle. My name is Dan Bacon. I'm the Development Director for M&R Development. I'm also a town resident, actually for the last 15 years, and a member of the FEDC. So I've been working with Mary and Tani for a number of years on the economic development side in the community. It's pretty exciting to be presenting to the Project Review Board on a project, and I think one that's been much needed for quite some time. So M&R Development is a group that currently is, well, for the last 6 to 8 years, been working on the Scarborough Downs project in Scarborough. We've done a lot of housing, a wide range of housing types, in fact, projects like this, apartments, condominiums, even tiny homes. So we're in the kind of the housing sector for sure. We also do commercial light industrial development at Scarborough Downs, but also in southern Maine. So it's exciting to be presenting to you with a project here in Scarborough. Excuse me, I do so much work in Scarborough, I would say Scarborough, here in Freeport. With me this evening is Patrick Booth from Woodhull Architecture and his team. They're working with us on the building design. Dan Diffins here of CV Mahar, an engineer that we're working with, who also worked on the previous project that Kyle referenced that was approved back in, I think it was 2022, so 3 or 4 years ago. Go to the next one. In terms of the site, I think Kyle has already kind of laid it out, and many of you know this location, or all of you know this location. It's almost an acre at the corner of Mill and Depot Street. It had been previously reviewed and permitted actually as a 67 or 64 in the 60s, the mid-60s unit apartment building. So a slightly different design, a larger building with more units, but in fact actually less parking. I think they had 20 to 24 parking spaces. But that project didn't move forward for one reason or another. It's also a key site that's been identified in Freeport's vision plan for housing to really bring some folks living in the downtown, particularly in Depot Street. Obviously, there's a lot of demand for housing in Freeport, in southern Maine, and Maine in general. There's also a great need for people to activate the street and provide more life in the village. So we think this project can really execute on those goals in the vision plan that's been worked on for a number of years, and see this as a catalyst project, and perhaps more housing can come and can make Depot Street into more of a neighborhood versus a collection of parking lots. So in terms of project highlights, as Kyle indicated, we're proposing 51 units, 3-story building. It's approximately 41 feet in height, so well below the new ordinance change of 55 and below the previous height limit of 45 feet. We think 3 stories make sense on this particular site as it relates to the number of units we want to proceed with, and also the parking, because we're proposing 1-to-1 parking, or about 1-to-1 parking, so that parking doesn't need to be shared from other sites to serve this particular apartment site. In terms of the building size, it's about a 13,400 square foot building footprint. And with 3 floors, you're just over 40,000 square feet in terms of floor area. We're still finalizing the specific mix of unit types, but we want to provide a range of from studio all the way up to a few 3 bedrooms and 1 and 2 bedrooms in the mix. I think it's, as of right now, it's kind of heavier on studios and 1s versus 2s and 3s, but we're still working with Patrick on kind of finalizing that and really understanding the market and what the market wants in terms of bedroom count and unit size. I mentioned the parking spaces, so there'll be 52. In terms of access, the plan is to come exclusively off of Depot Street. There's already a shared drive that provides access to the surface parking that exists on this site that's shared between this parking lot and the parking lot that's closer to us at Town Hall. That shared access drive, we have in place an easement with the property owner. That was something, I think, with the last project that wasn't entirely nailed down during permitting, so that is in place. And that's where we'll provide access, two-way access. Currently, there's also access off of Mill up closer to the tea shop and the abutter that's just one property up towards Main Street. And there's another curb cut off of Depot Street. So we're proposing to close both of those driveways and focus our access point from Depot. It's best for two-way traffic, and also from a grading and access standpoint. The Mill driveway doesn't work well with the parking lot and drainage and associated design considerations that Dan's been working on. In terms of parking, obviously right now it's a large parking lot, so we're in fact reducing the overall impervious area by adding a building, adding landscaping and green space around the building, and converting more or less half of the parking lot to roof area, which from a pollution standpoint is better for the stormwater system. In addition to comply with the ordinance and better the water quality in the overall watershed, Dan's designing for a tree box filter, a stormwater BMP that can capture and treat the runoff from the remaining 52 parking spaces. So in addition to the roof area, we're bettering the water quality and the stormwater situation by adding that filtration system. I think other than that, a lot of the permits that were in place, working with the sanitary district, working with the water district in the past, we anticipate re-engaging with those after tonight's meeting, but a lot of those are already in place or can just be renewed. And in terms of flows and utilities, this building is less in terms of occupancy, so we don't see any challenges with the utilities in terms of reapprovals. We have worked with CMP and also LOB, who's the current owner of the site, in terms of relocating one of the utility poles that's right at the corner of Depot and Mill, to actually get some of the overhead lines that currently go across the site off of the site so we can build the building, and also pull the pole away from the front corner of our building, which is the main entrance, and also kind of help the aesthetic, looking at the building and just access to the building, sidewalks, et cetera. It also is going to help with building construction, have one of the utility poles, overhead lines pulled away from the building. I think those are kind of the high points in terms of the site plan. And then if you go to the perspectives, and Patrick's going to kind of jump in and give you all the architectural details. I just wanted to speak briefly to the intent from a kind of a planning standpoint. We intentionally, and also per ordinance and design goals, we're pulling the building right to the street. So it's right up against Depot, has a great engagement with Depot Street. Also the corner of Mill in Depot, and we've focused our amenity space, which is the ground floor right at the corner, to be in line with sort of the adjacent retail space. So it reads more retail on that corner. We think it's going to fit in really nicely with the adjacent retail uses. Also, as you all know, walking from parking lots, this is a bit busy spot. So we felt like it was much better to have amenity space right at the corner versus units where people's windows are, which they're going to want more privacy. And also just kind of as a lively place for residents to be adjacent to the foot traffic that is on the street and sidewalks on a daily basis. And otherwise, the ground floor will, other than the amenity space and common hallways, it'll have units that follow along Depot Street, front to back, and then the upper stories will have obviously the units to get to the count of 51. So from there, I think I'll let Patrick kind of talk through the design intent, and then happy to answer questions when it goes back to the board.
Thanks, Dan, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting us present this project to you. I think Dan covered a lot of the high-level elements of the site design that we were excited about. Some of the things that when we approach a design like this, we look at the context of the neighborhood, and our objective really is just to place a nice, handsome building that doesn't scream too loudly for itself, but just kind of fits nicely into the context of the surrounding neighborhood. And so this is a sensible design. Obviously, it's a modern building, but we certainly take in nods of traditional detailing that's found throughout Freeport itself. A lot of predominant federal style and Italianate type style, neoclassical type architecture. So some of those, of course, are included in this design, I think, as a way to harmonize with the surrounding. The small building across the street, I think it's the E.B. Merrill building, is the nearest Class A building. And so with respect to the Chapter 22 design ordinances, that's one of the historic resources that we are providing some reverence to when we're thinking about the design of this building. So we are always thinking about how buildings can coexist in a neighborhood that has such historic character to it. So we attempted that here. We think it's pretty successful. Some of the things that also, to go in further detail, what Dan was saying is that the grade changes higher on the parking lot side down to where Depot Street is, and so we had we were able to take advantage of that to a degree, because a lot of times when you build a new building, things that make it seem out of place are things such as it's usually really close to grade for reasons of accessibility, like handicap accessibility. So by doing this, we are able to situate the elevators and handicap accessibility from the parking lot side where people are entering the building anyway, and then allow for the elevation along Depot Street to have those steps up to a door that kind of mimics a townhome type feel. And so that helps break down scale, helps provide a more stronger connection to the street. A lot of times you might see a building like this and it's just a bunch of windows down the road and you don't have that kind of connection to the sidewalk. So that's what's really nice about this design, that we're having kind of a typical apartment type of layout, but allow for that townhome style to have a more of a connection to the street. So, and so further than that, using articulations that help break down the scale, such as the use of the bay windows, the use of the trim details around the windows itself or the cornices, are all kind of working in together to help meet the goals, especially with respect to design standards between scale and proportion, and then like the use of solids and voids, between the use of windows and the solid clapboards, materials that are very familiar to the neighborhood, is all part of the overall goal to make a sensible, handsome building that fits well into the neighborhood. You can go to the next slide. I think there's some other really nice public amenities that we are incorporating in this. So like Dan said, the space on the ground floor with the storefront glass is an amenity space for the residents, like a common living room or shared kitchen, maybe a fitness room. The specific program requirements aren't yet defined, but the idea is that this is a space that's semi-private, but we have a little outdoor space that is a part of the landscaping elements of the building to help it feel integrated. There's a lot of nice little pocket areas in Freeport where they have like a place to sit, and so we saw this as a nice opportunity to do that here as well. And you can, and if you go to the next slide, I think that this is a really cool slide that we had developed. And so this is if you're standing on Main Street and looking down the property, down Mill Street, and I think it really shows how it can fit very nicely in the rest of the context. You see I think where the Sperry shoe stores on the left and the Sea Love in the foreground. You have little rose hips in the immediate foreground, but part of what they're talking about with the change on Depot Street, the height limit, is because it does drop down so quickly on High Street that even though this is a 3-story building, you can see that Sea Love building, which is a 2-story building but with a gable roof, that it appears higher than that because of its proximity and its higher grade. So it's a very comfortable spot to have a 3-story building, and that I think walking by this as a resident of Freeport or a visitor would feel really comfortable about seeing this building. And also just back to the whole point of getting more people to live within walking distance, all the great stores and amenities that Freeport has to offer, I think is really exciting for us. So if there's any more details about the architecture, happy to dwell on those, because I could go all day, but I figured to keep it high level here. And this is just a quick snapshot of the floor plan so I can get an idea. So just to go back to my other comment about the stair steps, so some of the large units, the 2 bedrooms here along Depot Street, do have that kind of more special kind of townhome type entrance to it. And how that works is that the floor plan allows for an entry door both from the common corridor and from the front. And so that's where your handicap access would be for all the units. But then you have a secondary entrance from Depot Street itself. So, and this is the Mindy space on the far right side. So with that, I think nothing else to add, but happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
That's the conclusion of our presentation. I would just say that we haven't picked out colors yet. That's why it looks like a ghost white. So we'll come back to you at the next meeting with more specifics around color scheme. But at this point, we wanted to show you form and overall design intent. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. It's an attractive building, and it seems like it's well thought out. Board have any questions or comments?
I would just echo that. It does seem very appealing and kind of like gone with the basics, the 3-part facade with a nice distinct base, the body, and then the crown cornice just is well composed. And I think it all fits together nicely. The glass around the amenity space, I think is really going to make that corner happen. And it looks like the seating you have outside also just adds to the livability of the corner. I guess we'll want to look more in the future at what the stair configuration is like going into the units, but I think it's the right move to have the porch, have the stair, and you've knitted it nicely with the bays as well. Kyle's suggestion about the steps seems interesting, to try to make it more part of the sidewalk appearance than part of the building. How you fit that together, a little tricky, but you'll figure it out, I'm sure. So yeah, great project.
Lynn does have a comment.
Lynn?
Yes, I'd just like to say I'm thrilled to see that space that was previously approved being used for housing. I think the design's lovely. My only question, I know this is early, but you indicated vegetation, trees along the front of the building, but on the parking lot side, it appears there's nothing indicated in the way of landscaping. Is that coming later?
Yeah, we're going to work on a landscaping package. There's going to be landscaping along the building edge, separating the parking to the building along the walkway. And we're going to try to tuck some landscaping by that outdoor patio that we showed on a previous slide, and also up on the corner closer to the Sea Love building. So we're going to sneak landscaping in where we can. There's not a ton of space, but we're certainly going to provide for some on the backside as well as Depot, as you mentioned.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Lynn, if you're looking at the site plan, it wasn't marked on the site plan as landscaping in the packet, but you can see the kind of defined area where it goes from parking area to sidewalk, and then there's a few feet before the building starts.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah,
Good.
We'll see more detail there.
Thank you.
I just agree with Jason and Lynn. I think it addresses a need in town housing. The previous slide, the one that you just took away, I thought was a great showing of how it is aesthetically pleasing for Main Street. So I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, ditto and ditto. I think the thing I was worried about was how you would fit the scale and rhythm requirements of the design review, and it appears to me you've done a great job with it. It really fits very nicely, so it'd be good. It'd be nice to get an understanding of the facade materials. I know we can't weigh in on color, but sure hope you make a good choice on color. But hopefully we can get a sense on facade materials at the next one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's primarily clapboard, but we'll get into those details with the next application.
Great. Yeah, well done.
And am I correct that you are thinking that you would not be on the September board?
I think we'd likely be on the October. The consultants have some work to do, so. But we're well on our way in terms of the design.
Do you have any thoughts on when you ideally would start construction?
We were thinking we'd start over the course of the winter. Our goal would be to start end of this calendar year, early next, and to be complete by late winter, early spring of '27, so that we could be, leasing up. Residents could be moving in April, May of '27 is our goal.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone from the public care to comment?
Okay, you know me. I really want to say wahoo is really what I want to say, but thank you. Thank you for your consideration. This is a lovely project. Thank you to Dan and his team. I think they brought to us the first housing project that really is what we want in Freeport. I am so grateful and just really want to say wahoo.
Thanks, Mary.
Good evening. My name is John Egan. For the past 2 years, I've been serving on the Council's Housing Committee Advisory Task Force, and this is exactly the kind of project that we had been envisioning. It's actually a manifestation of several of the ideas that were put on the board and voted on by our members of our community in 2021 during the vision plan. This exact location had a high-density 3- or 4-story building on it, and we got a lot of sticky notes or circles on those buildings. So this is almost to the T exactly what we have been wanting as a community. And I think if you do a little bit of research, you'll find that this is a high integrity quality team. The project meets all of the requirements of the ordinance. It is an environmental improvement over the parking lot that's already there. But most importantly, it's bringing downtown residents within walking distance of our community, our assets in our downtown. And that is one of the key pillars of a thriving downtown, is to have people living there past 5 o'clock, past 4 o'clock on the weekends when the shopping leaves. You have residents there, and you're going to see a diversity of businesses arrive. You're going to see lots of different things happening. You're going to see stuff happening out on the street, music and art and culture, and people having fun, not just carrying shopping bags. Nothing wrong with carrying shopping bags, but you're going to see a whole diversity of things happening. And thanks to Dan for plowing ahead, and we hope to see more of these. The Housing Committee does, of these kinds of projects for the high density. But I think if we have to have a blazing trail, this is a fabulous foot to put first down this path and get people comfortable with the idea of what high density housing looks like in our downtown. It's exactly what we've been asking for.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, Andrew Arsenal, I'd like to thank him for providing more than the required amount of parking space, 1-to-1. The other thing, I heard a comment, they had an interview on the radio today of somebody, and they were discussing the rising value of residential units compared to the dropping value of commercial properties, and how that affects going to affect a lot of small towns like ours when it comes to taxation. That the value of commercial properties are going down and down and down. City of Portland, all over the Northeast probably, and this will help our tax base as well, because this will be higher value, and it'll be great. I think it's a big, good-looking project, and just happy about the parking, because I just think we need 3/4 of a space just isn't enough. I don't know how you cut the car that thin, so thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody else?
Mitch Ruda, I'm on the Planning Board and the Housing Committee. I don't think it's necessary for me to talk, because there's broad agreement among the whole community to support a project like this. So I'll just say this is what we want, and to the architects, it's really pretty good-looking building. And I really think it's going to look good on Depot Street, not just going down.
Thanks, Mitch.
So, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, we don't have any, there's no action for us to take one. Oh, do you have something else, Dan?
Just in case there's a question.
Okay, thanks. No action for us to take. There is a question of a site walk. I personally don't feel a need for a site walk, but there are two members who are new to the board, so if you do have any thoughts on that?
Walked by that tons.
Anything else? See you in October.
much.
Thank you very much. Looks like a nice project. Anything else? Nothing else on the agenda.
We have to adjourn.
Yeah. Anything else before we take a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Lynn, are you in favor of adjourning?
I am.
Okay, nice to
Beautiful.
see everybody.
Thank you.
Two good projects.
Yeah, I know.